First of all, I want to thank you for never selling out and always being interesting. And second of all, I want to thank you for the spiritualism you sprinkle in your different albums. I remember when I was my son's age and I heard the wheel, I heard, karma, what's that word? I have to go look that up. And
how about onomatopoeia? Look that up.
no, I knew what that word meant by the time Hermit came out. And that's a great song. That was my ex-husband's favorite for a long time. Also, I quit smoking 6 months ago, and for some reason, whenever I had a real bad craving, I'd put on Just One Victory, craving gone. And I wanted to ask you, Daryl Hall's doing this live at Daryl Hall's house thing once a month, and he has these different guests. He's had, the younger musicians. He's had Nick Lowe, and he has a really good band behind him. And I wonder if he ever asked you to perform on that monthly thing. It's live on the net. Would you ever consider doing it? Because I enjoyed you when you played with Daryl Hall and John Oates.
I'm open to almost anything. Usually, Daryl and I have been out together. Of course, Hall and Oates and me. There's still an Oates.
Yeah, there's still an Oates, but he's not on that show usually.
But I'm not exactly sure I understand the implications of the question.
He's got like an online TV show.
Yeah.
He makes a mean martini, I'm told.
Did she set you up to this?
No, it's a great. I'm telling you, the band is great. And the people
I know.
I've
heard about this, but when I hear about him having success with that, I think, it'd be interesting to do that. What can I do that's like that?
Well, yeah,
but
that
there
was
is,
what I was
there are
thinking,
there are the challenges of. I've always thought that the hardest thing that I've ever done was music for television, because there's no flexibility in it. And you're the low man on the totem pole, and you get the notes and everything after everyone else is done, and your thing gets applied last in the production, and they do arbitrary things with it, anything they wanted. But the hardest part for me was the fact that you have to write and record anywhere from 10 to 30 to 40 minutes worth of music in something like 3 days. And I've tried to do things where I've had, actual sort of time-based commitments, where, okay, I got to do this by the end of the month, and I'm going to do this every month, stuff like that. When it gets to doing something like every week, or worse, every day, I can't imagine how they, I can understand why. Put it this way. David Letterman is in such a bad mood all the time.
That's what I hear.
He's freaking trapped by this job, he's like trapped in it. And the problem with something like that is the success of it locks you into something that perhaps you didn't expect, And while I can imagine, like doing an episode or something like that, it's a far greater challenge, obviously for him or for anyone who wants to do something like that, to do something that is, you got to find good guests at regular intervals. You have to do good shows all the time in that particular kind of format and things like that. So I'd be happy to appear on somebody's show like that, but I have to think long and hard before doing something like that.
That I can understand.
Myself.
You've always got so many different things in your mind. And where do you go next from here? I know you mentioned a Robert Johnson project that you were thinking about doing?
I'm gonna rest for a little while.
That's cool
after this
too.
tour is done, but not for long. I got a little more playing to do. I always have a little bucket list of things.
Bucket list.
Of things that I like to do, in the short term. And it's all a question of things falling into place in time and stuff like that. I can say that on my plate are various things like possibly some kind of computer game, involvement in that somehow. Possibly some sort of record production, stuff like that. There'll be other things besides playing live and producing records that I'll have the opportunity to do, I'm sure. But
any sort of musical in the future?
We need to get on to the other questions because we're running out of
time.
I'm sorry, but I just worry that we're going to run out of time here.
Okay.
In
Hello.
an article I once read, you said that you could.
Completely made up. It's not coming from anyone's heart. It's just meant to be clever and facile and stuff like that, and that kind of music doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't mean that all country music and every country artist sucks. There is great country music, but unfortunately what gets played on the radio is like what gets played on the radio of everything else, which is usually not the best of it, just the most accessible of it, And I have a feeling that if I tried to do that, that real country listeners would sense in me the fact that I was not actually being concertedly fake enough or whatever, I don't know, and just would realize that I wasn't being sincere with it, And I never thought I would do a arena rock record, but once I did it, I have a lot of fun doing it. And I imagine if I ever figure out a way that I want to do country music or death metal or any other kind of, extreme genre, that I would figure out a way to do it so that I would at least have fun doing it. And so you're right, you should never say never, especially as a musician. But I don't know when I will do that. I don't have an idea at this point.
We've got time for 2 more questions because these gentlemen have been in line, and thank you very much.
Yeah, great to see you here in the Midwest, and thanks for being
Thank
a part
you.
of the tour.
Good shirt.
I know. Nice time at your house. So.
Todd Stalker.
He signed my accordion, too, so I didn't bring that with me tonight, but it's around. I guess the question was, I heard you talking about kind of that period of time when you were excited about the computer graphics and the inception of the graphic tablets and some of the first things that were emerging then. And of course, we've come a long way since then. I'm curious if there's anything on your bucket list or other technologies that are kind of at the fringes or just emerging that you see yourself taking advantage of. I've been spending a lot of time like with visualization, real-time visualization software and things of that nature that I think have a lot of concepts that you were probably one of the first to really exploit without the
Well, it's funny, I'm very selective about the technologies I get involved in and when I get involved in them. As I say, I didn't think I wanted to use computers to make music for a long time while other people were doing it, or using sequencers or other sorts of digital things, to produce music. For a long time, I thought I have no interest in that. And then I sort of got to a point where I thought this, and it was around No World Order. I said, before that, I was doing all live records. I said, I don't want any kind of artifice. I want all live players playing in real time. But to do this kind of concept of random access music, everything had to be so precise that the only practical technology was, using sequencers and, various kind of computer-based music production tools. And it's just turned out to be a convenience for me maybe since then that I continue to use them. Doesn't mean it's exclusive, but I'm comfortable with the technology now. But for instance, I don't own a cell phone. I don't tweet, I don't blog. I don't, I think the automobile was one of the biggest mistakes humankind has ever made. And I would love to see some way to ameliorate that. I'm getting to the point now where I want certain technologies to disappear as opposed to new ones to appear. And maybe that's just me becoming old and crotchety. But when I imagine the future, I don't imagine immediate boons from these things. The reason why I don't own a cell phone and the reason why I don't tweet and the reason why I don't blog, have nothing to do with the technologies. It has to do with the kind of behaviors that it elicits in other human beings that I just don't want to have anything to do with. Some anonymous clown, who will say things he would never say to your face just because he's got a keyboard and a remote connection. So there's some technologies I wish would become less popular. Cell phones are just out of hand at this point. The freaking messaging and tweeting. Is everything we have to say that important? Because it's essentially gotten to the point where people put no value on listening. They put all the value on talking and no value on listening. And I'm not going that way. You know, I'm a musician. I need people to listen. You know.
Final question of the night is from Tim Brickley, Indianapolis musician.
Yeah, Todd, this has been a blast. I know, lifelong inspiration for me, and I'm sure everybody here. So
Terrific. Thank you.
And Ken, good job putting this together. I was just wondering, could I produce your next record? It's a joke. Although not really. I know what you should do. No, a little from Peter, Paul, and Mary to Bob Dylan to you, Albert Grossman, I thought has always been an amazing figure. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about him, and who do you think he'd be working with today? If
He was a funny guy, Albert Grossman, and today nobody would work with him if he continued on the path that he had been on. Albert Grossman was originally a restaurateur in Chicago. And he was one of the first people to like build a little stage and have folk acts come in and play at his restaurant. And those folk acts turned out to be Bob Dylan and Peter, Paul, and Mary and other seminal folk acts that he later signed and evolved from being a restaurateur into a super manager. And when I was with him, he was still managing Peter, Paul, and Mary. He wasn't managing Bob Dylan anymore, but he had Janis Joplin, and he had James Cotton. He had the band. It still had a fairly substantial raft of artists, many of which I got to work with. But he was still a restaurateur at heart, and a real. If you got to know Albert, you inevitably had a love-hate relationship with him. If you didn't get to know Albert, you had a hate relationship with him. But if you did get to know him, then you had a love-hate relationship. He could be very generous at times. He could do great things for your career. He could be the biggest jerk in the world. And he would screw you just as look at you, no matter how long you had worked with him. And he did that to me. And when he died, I had no regrets, and few people did. He was one of these larger-than-life things, but in the end, he had no true friends, because he everything in his world had a little Dymo label on the bottom with the insurance number on it. Everything, every single thing, salt shakers, had a little Dymo label on the bottom with the insurance number on it, you know. He cared so much about the things that he had, you know, and the things he could acquire, and so little about the impact all that had on the people that he lived with and worked with. So he was an extremely powerful and interesting guy, and extremely flawed guy. So.
Well, Todd, you have had an enormous impact on all of us, a positive impact, and thank you for your contributions to the world, to music, to DePauw University tonight. And I'm going to shake your hand, and I've got a gift for you. Before we all say goodnight, I have a DePauw sweatshirt for you. And I got one for Michelle, too, that she's going to get.
Can I get an honorary degree? I never did go to college.
Yeah, we got one of those in the back.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Todd Rundgren.
Yeah, DePauw. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.